had Cadbury eggs.
On my screen, it says webinar is now streaming live on YouTube. I don't know if everybody else is seeing that.
There's your
Yeah,
flag,
I'm on the
Mayor.
YouTube channel trying to make sure it's actually doing it before.
It just came up that we're now streaming live on YouTube.
Okay.
Thanks so much to
Okay, we're
Morgan.
good to go. Thanks for your patience, you guys.
All good.
Are we ready to go, Morgan?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, there's your flag, Mayor, if you want to do a pledge of allegiance.
Well, we just ask you to give the moment of silence, and I'll let you decide whether or not you want to do the pledge. But if you'll let us go ahead and we'll start this discussion. I want to invite everybody. This is the Roy City Council. This is an electronic version using teleconferencing for April 21st, 2020. With us today is Councilmember Saxton, Councilmember Wilson, Councilmember Paul, Councilmember Burrell, and Councilmember Jackson. Okay, we appreciate you being. We've asked Councilmember Paul if he'd go ahead and give us a moment of silence. And then if he, since he has a flag, would like to basically lead us in a pledge of allegiance, I'll leave it to his discretion. Thank you, Joe.
All right, appreciate everybody coming to be involved. If you'll join me for a moment of silence. All right, thank you. As much as I'd love to do a pledge of allegiance, I don't know that it's going to be easy for everybody to stand and give proper salute, so I think we'll forego that at this point. But know that I put the flag there so we can remember.
Good point. Thank you. Okay, we do have some consent items. So if you don't mind, I'd like to basically walk through those. We have basically, it looks like two of them, the approval of the March 3rd, 2020 Roy City Council work session and work session minutes. And we do have the sale of surplus ambulance and all public work, parks, and recreational supplied items as listed. Council, do you have any comments on those consent items?
Diane Wilson here. Just wanted to mention there were just a few minor changes. So if we want to, when we go to approve those, we would just do it with minor changes on the minutes.
Are we going to pull it out of the consent and move it to an action item then?
Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea. We just need to make sure that we take that as an action item, that those have been forwarded, Diane, to Morgan, so she can include those.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, is it
Morgan,
just,
do you
is it
have
just
those?
on the minutes?
I
Just on
have
the
Yes,
all
just
of
on
the,
the minute.
yeah, it's just on the minutes. And I have all of the changes that she
Okay.
submitted that'll be changed before they're published. There were just
Okay.
a few little errors on who said what.
Okay, we're all right then on the consent agenda for that. If it was the sale of surplus, I'd say we need to move it out and discuss it.
Yes, I agree. Okay, thank you, Andy. That's good information to know. Okay, any other comments on the minutes or the surplus items?
Make a motion, we approve.
Okay, do I have we have a motion to approve the consented items? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jan Burrell. First motion was by Joe Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved. Thank you. We do have some action items. First one is Resolution 20-8, providing for the convenient and conducting Roy City public meetings in accordance with the Utah Public Meeting Act and associated with the issuance of an executive order by Governor Herbert. Council, any comments or questions about this particular resolution, Resolution 20-8? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 20-8?
So moved.
Okay, who was that?
Diane?
Diane,
I'll
thank you.
second it.
And do I have a second?
Second, Jan.
Jan, thank you. Okay, this is a roll call vote. So if you go ahead, Morgan, and make the roll call vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay. We now have resolution 20-9, approving an agreement for the Comfort System USA for the boiler replacement project in the Roy City Aquatic Center. Matt, is Travis, who's going to talk this?
Ross is online right now. He's going to be talking about it.
Perfect.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right, on March 5th, we had a bid opening for the boilers down at the Aquatic Center. We are replacing the flat pool and the wader pool. We had only one bid. It came in at $55,327.97. It came in under budget, but we're just asking you guys to approve that.
I have a question on that, Ross.
Yes?
In light of, we don't know if or when the aquatic center is going to open, are we going to move forward now or kind of hold off and see what it looks like in the near future?
We were gonna move forward with just getting them ordered. It's gonna take some time to get here. So even if it doesn't open this year, we would need them for next year. So we were just trying to get them ordered and get them in here.
Okay.
Notice that there was a deadline. They wanted it in by May 5th or something like that. Is that something that's that important then, or is that something that could be relaxed on that contract?
We will never get them in by May 5th. So if we get them, we're hoping to get them, if you guys approve this tonight, get them ordered and installed by the 1st of June.
It was actually May 15th is when it said.
Yeah, but this is, we was hoping to get them ordered before now.
Okay. I'm sorry, say again when you think that you'd be able to get them in?
We'd have them in and running by the 1st of June.
I see.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 20-9 approving the agreement with Comfort Systems USA for the boiler replacement project at the Roy City Aquatic Center.
I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Joe Paul and a second by
Ann.
Ann. Thank you. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell. Jan, you're muted. Sorry, I just need. I mean, I saw you nod your head, but I wanted to make sure. Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Wonderful. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, we now have ordinance number 20-6, an ordinance amending the Roy City Noise Control Ordinance by adding sections 4-431 to prohibit engine braking, Utah State Road SR 97 from 1900 west to 4300 west, and accept the overpass on the SR 108 at Hinckley Drive to 3500 west. So
Mayor, that
Matt, you wanna-
should be section 4-4-3.5.
4-4-3.5, okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Good. Okay, Matt, you want to comment on this just a little bit?
Yeah, Brandon Edwards is filing the application with the state of Utah. He'll be able to talk about it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to specify, SR 97 is 5600 south from 19 to 4300, and we wanted to exclude the overpass on there just because we have safety concerns as far as coming down the overpass. So that's why we've removed that off of there. And then also SR 108 Hinckley Drive to 3500 west, that's Midland Drive. So we'd start it right there at Hinckley Drive to 3500 west. And I guess we just had some complaints with engine brakes going through there because there's, so much residential houses backing up to those roads. And so that's why I was tasked with moving forward with this.
Okay, council, you have comments on this?
Yeah, I think one of the concerns that where this originated was down closer to 4300 west on 5700. I do have a concern that from 1900 west to about 3100 west is all fairly sloped. You've got the overpass in there, plus you're coming down a fairly significant grade. I would propose to amend it to go from like 3100 west to 4300 west. And then not change anything on the other.
Okay,
I'd
other
like to
comments?
jump in. Yes, I had an opportunity to speak with some different people that are in that industry and actually pulled up a very good article. And they were saying that one of the most important things is the safety issue for engine brakes. And so if we completely prohibit them, one of the biggest problems is then the truck, especially depending on how heavy it is, what the weight is, then they'll have to go very, very slow so they can keep safe. Because if they don't use engine brakes, they have to use their regular brakes, and then they won't be ready for safety issues. Like if someone darts out or something happens quickly, and then the traffic gets backed up and the flow is difficult. But what a lot of the states have been doing is, in fact, it's across the board many places, is there are muffled, most of the newer trucks have muffled engine brakes. And so a lot of the ordinances are saying that you just, as long as they're muffled, they're okay to use, because there are some nice studies and that show the decibel rating, and that they're not much different than a lot of the other noises that are going on. And then you don't have to worry about traffic flow. And the most important thing is the safety. So you get the benefit from the noise standpoint that the citizens are worried about, but then you also still keep the safety and traffic flow. I'm thinking that if we could just look at that, maybe consider rewriting it just to add that little bit, then that would probably be our best option for this.
Councilmember Wilson, I believe the last sentence in there does say it's not applicable in emergency situations where it's used to prevent injury or damage to persons, property, or animals.
So certainly that part would be good, but if all we had to do was just add that one word that says that unmuffled would be prohibited, then I think that across the board, then you wouldn't have to worry about the real slowing of the traffic, as well as, for example, if they had already been using their brakes, their regular brakes, and they were already a little bit hot because they were going slow and going down the road, then if an emergency did occur, then those brakes, which are better for emergencies, wouldn't be as available. They wouldn't be as effective. And so I talked to UDOT, and we do have an area of about 3.9 on the grade. So and most of it's not that bad, but there were some really good examples in some of these articles that if we could just put unmuffled, prohibit unmuffled, then it would be beneficial for everyone. Then we wouldn't have the problems with traffic, and we'd still have the safety issue.
So let's look at that last sentence. Would you say this section is not applicable when using an unmuffled braking system and in emergency situations?
I just lost myself. But so basically, I think what you would say is you would say to prohibit unmuffled engine braking. So you go back up to the top where it says prohibit unmuffled engine.
I think what she's suggesting with that comment is this. If the particular vehicle coming down has an unmuffled to reduce the noise, then it is in violation of this particular ordinance if it's approved. If it's muffled, then she's suggesting is there is probably not going to be the noise issue that would typically generate, and therefore if it's muffled, this particular ordinance would not be applicable to that particular vehicle.
Thank you.
There's also something that we have to consider is this is also state roads, and that we can approve how we want to approve here, but in the application process, I'm not sure they would allow that type of language. We would just have to check on that. with the application, because we do have to apply for the application from the state, and then they will post the signs. That's my understanding.
Yeah, also to touch on that as well, is that's part of the application status, is we have to have our police department stating that they will enforce it as well. So that's kind of my worry, is how do we enforce a muffled versus unmuffled engine brake?
Good question. So,
So
I agree.
So
I
can-
agree with it on the unmuffled. I think that should be put in there. My husband used to have a large truck, and I remember him talking about this and his engine brakes, and I've read the email from the gentleman who owns the trucks and the problem, and that, the expense it causes them, for a regular brake in the engine brakes. And I think if you could get that muffled, I don't know what the procedure is, or Matt, if you can even do that, but I kind of agree with what Diane's saying.
okay, so well, here's the question, Matt. You're indicating is that we may pass this as a ordinance, but it may not have any effect if the state doesn't necessarily support it. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, correct. And then we also have to know if Chief Marino would be able to enforce it as well on that end, because if he's having to sign off saying that he would know the difference, his officers would have to be trained in knowing the difference in that. To be straight with you, I don't know the difference between that, and I don't know if they would either. So,
Well, Matt, in your opinion then, and maybe Carl's opinion, are we premature to pass an ordinance since we have a couple of pieces of information we still need to get? First is, go ahead.
yeah, we could always table it and do our homework on it. Chief, do you have any input on that? Do you think it would be very difficult for your officers to distinguish that?
No, when they use the engine brake, the Jake brake, it's pretty loud. When it's muffled, it's actually surprisingly quiet.
Okay, if they can make that distinction, if it's a pretty loud Jake brake, then, and they can enforce it, I don't have any issue with it. The only thing that we'd have to watch out for is if the state would allow us to make that distinction on their roads. But we would have to check on that.
Would it be a problem to table it and find that out before we pass the resolution?
No, I don't see a problem with it, no.
Yeah, I
I
think that's
think
what we
the
should do.
motion
Because
is that we research it with the state.
right. Because you can definitely tell when a Jake brake is being used.
Okay.
And you have a question, comment?
No, I'm just saying you can definitely tell when someone uses their Jake brake. I was in my husband's dump truck many a time, and it's a big difference.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so here's what we got is we have what appears to be a modification to the ordinance, which basically suggests is that this is only applicable, that's the proposed, only applicable if the vehicle is unmuffled. So here's what I need to have you do. Do I
make
have a
a
motion
to
then?
table this until we talk to the state.
That's the question I ask you, Matt. Do you think we should table this until we basically, or do I have a motion to table?
I'll second
I
it.
make the motion to table.
Go ahead, Joe.
I make the motion, we table it until we have more information from the state and make sure they're willing to buy off on our potential amendment to it.
Okay, I do. I now have a motion on the floor to table this particular ordinance. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, this one does not require a roll call vote. This just requires all in favor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll table that ordinance until we get more information from the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have an ordinance number 20-4, amended general plan, future lands map and medium density, single family residential to very high density, multifamily residential at 5154 South, 2700 West. Let me have Steve, if you go ahead and just start the conversation, then we'll go into some public comment. I'll ask for a vote to go into public comment on this, and then we'll listen to some input. Steve, go ahead.
Mayor, if you're okay, I'd like to discuss also ordinance 20-5 at the same time.
Yes, that's fine. They're both synced. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen with you because I do have a presentation like always, so hold on. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so again, this is a request to amend the general plan, the future land use map from medium density, single family residential to very high density, multifamily residential. And then ordinance 20-5 is to amend the zoning map from R16 and R18 to the applicant wants either R3 or R4. So just so everybody has the location of where this is at, this is on the east side of 2700 West, just T intersection of 5200 South. It's just over 2.8 acres, if I remember right. Yeah.
Can I ask, Steve, is that one plot or two plots?
It's two pieces of ground. The one that's vacant is just over 2 acres. And then the one to the north, which is currently zoned R18, has a house on it, and it's what, 0.7 something acres. So in the next map, you'll see two different parcels outlined. But Mr. Terry owns both of these. So he's the applicant. On the future land use map, you can see here both parcels are kind of highlighted. They're both on the map to be medium density, single family residential. What that means in the general plan is anywhere from R16 to R110. So when you look at the zoning map, and it's hard to tell, but the larger parcel on the south is already zoned R16. The smaller parcel to the north that has the existing home is R18. So they currently do meet the general plan on density wise. Historically, and again, this has had a few hearings, I should say. Back in 2016, the request was again to change it from medium density to high density, or very high density, I mean, and then to rezone it from R3 or R18 to R3. The Planning Commission at that time recommended denial. The City Council in the meeting in August followed suit and denied both applications. In early 2018, Mr. Terry again requested a rezone and a general plan amendment. This time the Planning Commission recommended approval on both counts, and the council at that time in April denied both requests for the general plan amendment and the rezone request. And then a month later, Mr. Terry came back requesting that it be rezoned from R18 to R16, which the Planning Commission recommended approval. And in June, the council followed suit with that request. With that, I just want to kind of go over what is density. A lot of people have a different idea of what density is, but I just kind of want to go through how many single family homes can be within each zone or residential units. So in an R18 zone, which is again, single family requiring 8,000 square foot lot minimums, you can get 5.45 dwellings per acre. And the general plan calls that medium density. An R16 zone, again, single family residential, 6,000 square foot lot minimums, you can get 7.26 units per acre. Again, the general plan calls that medium density. Changing things, if we go to an R2 zone, which allows for a 2-family residential, so a duplex, which requires 7,500 square feet minimum per lot, you can get 5.18 2-family units per acre, or 11.6 dwellings per acre. So the 5.8 is number of buildings, but that has 2 units per, so 11.6. And the general plan calls that high density. Now, this is where the general plan and the zoning ordinance don't necessarily mesh together. Our zoning ordinance calls R3 and R4 multifamily residential. It allows 12 units per acre, so less than 1/2 unit more than a R2 zone. Let me repeat that. Less than 1/2 of a unit than the R2 zone. The general plan calls this out to be very high density. But the general plan also calls out very high density is truly 25 units per acre. Our zoning doesn't have that in the zone. So R3, R4, which is our highest density, represents this. The concern comes is what's the difference between R2 and R3? And there's not much. It's 1/2 a unit per acre. So again, I asked the question, what is density? I've had some people say, well, it's the type of building. So you see here, this is a Dara complex there on 4600 South and 3500 West. It's zoned R3 and it has 12 units per acre, which is to me a very nice project. It does provide a type of living scenario for those who need apartments or, can't afford to buy a home or something. Then you have Orchards at 19th, just here at 4600 South. 4600 South and 1900 West. Most people like townhomes, but again, it's still 12 units per acre. And a lot of times people associate high density with apartment complex and not high density with townhomes. Even though they've got the same number of units per acre, it's kind of the visual effect of something looks good versus not good. So with that, the staff originally, when we went to the Planning Commission, recommended approval for both of them, highlighting more the R3 zone than the R4. Not that there's any difference in density between the two. The R4 does allow for offices, and staff didn't feel that on 2700 West having an office or the ability to have an office was appropriate for that, because it is, again, more of a residential zone, but it does have light manufacturing in the area. When the Planning Commission made their recommendation, they recommended approval for the general plan amendment and recommended approval for the rezone to R3 with the condition that only townhomes are built on that property and not apartment complex. So again, they have a condition on their approval for the rezone to townhomes and townhomes only. And the applicant was fine with that. In your staff report, I thought I put it in here, but they provided kind of an idea of what the townhomes would look like. So with that, I will entertain any questions that the council may have.
I could not see in the packet that we received the number of townhomes that they would be looking at.
Well, they would just go for the number that would be allowed in there. So 2.89 units per acre, or 2.89 acres times 12. And again,
so that could be potentially almost 30, probably 30 units.
Well, 34 is what the numbers come up to, but they still have to provide roads, parking, landscaping, all the requirements of the ordinance. So what can they get versus what they are allowed also will differ, but that's something that the ordinance allows already, is 12 units per acre.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Steve, just for clarification for the council, if it's retained as an R16, how many single family units would go with that property if it's left as a R16?
7.226. Again, that's without roads. So I'm not sure how it would be subdivided and stuff like that.
So you're estimating about 23, 24? What do you see as the estimated number of units if it's left R16?
Well, again, part of it's R16 and part of it's already R18. So it's kind of hard to say what it would be, not knowing what the design of the subdivision is. Is it just a couple cul-de-sacs or is it a U shape? It's really difficult to say, but if there was no roads that needed to be put in, you could put it all just fronting 27, you're probably looking, what, 2.1 is the R16. Yeah, you're probably, yeah, 15, 18.
Well, it's going up at least 5 per acre, a minimum of 5 per acre.
Well, that's, if they build it as it is now, you're, the one where the property where the house is at is 5 per acre. The property that's vacant is 7 per acre.
So either way, I mean, let's say we go with the 7.26 up to 12 it would be an increase of 5 per acre.
Yes, if you went to, yeah. I see what you're saying, Jan, or Jan, sorry.
Okay, council, any other questions for Steve? What I'd like to do is see if we can get the applicant on the line and give us their thoughts. Any questions for Steve?
I was wondering if there was by chance, is there anything in this, something like this that would be rentals versus owners? Some of the concerns I had received from nearby people were the concern of that rentals versus owning, and also parking requirements. I received some input that maybe the parking requirements wouldn't be enough, and then there would be more parking on the street, and then a quality assurance. Is there a type of quality of building assurance that we have as part of this? Those are my 3 questions.
Parking wise, our ordinance is what it is. It's 2 stalls per unit and a half a stall per unit for visitors.
Okay.
That's actually more than a single family home requires. So they would have to have all the required parking on site. Just like all the other developments that have occurred, they have to have all their parking on site. Now, I can't stop people from parking on the street, just like in front of your house or stuff like that. But the number of parking stalls per the project, they have to provide it on site. The quality assurance, again, brand new homes are better than 50-year homes just by upkeep purposes. There's nothing in our ordinance that says one way or another, but they do have to maintain the materials that are required per the ordinance of, masonry, brick, siding, hardy plank. So they do have to maintain all that. As for renters versus owners, townhomes, and as far as I know, and the applicant, when he talks, can specify, but he's planning on selling these to people. Now, that doesn't mean that I couldn't go buy one and then rent it out.
Mm-hmm.
We as a city can do to stop that. It is the property owner's right to occupy it themselves or rent it out to somebody else to occupy. But it's not going to be all rentals. He's planning on selling them.
Thank you.
Could I ask one question, Steve?
Oh, go ahead.
There is a question about, does it address the affordable housing? And so my question is, what is the estimated cost of these units?
The applicant will probably have to do that, but just like anything in the market, the more housing units we have, the least amount that they're gonna, well, I shouldn't say the least, rent will go down, because if there's more units able to be rented than people wanting them, people's rents are gonna go down. Same with house prices. The more houses we have on the market, the less they're worth. When there's more demand versus supply, that's when rates go up. So even if this is more market driven on cost, the more housing units we can put into the to the area will drive costs down, which will help those that, for affordability. But I'll let him talk about what price points they're looking at.
The email that they provided, I think, put cost at $267.
Right.
Just
Yes.
right?
That's what they
Isn't
said.
that-
Yeah, $267,000. And so and it's gonna have a homeowners association. So if it's rented, the property is still gonna be taken care of, not like if somebody rents their home and then they never mow their lawn again or pull a weed.
That's right.
Yeah, having a
that's right.
homeowner association, even though it's not always fun to be involved in one, does bring in knowing that they will take care of it. You're paying
Can we,
dollars a month, so to speak, and someone's taking care of your flowers, your lawn, the trees and stuff like that.
Right.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
Steve,
Yes,
can we put in a requirement for them to be owner occupied?
well, again, back to the question that Councilwoman Wilson had, is we cannot dictate if it's owner occupied or if I purchase the home and I decide to live somewhere else and own it, that's my right, and rent it out. So the city doesn't have, and Andy may be able to comment on this more, but
I agree with you, Steve.
of doing that. Now, the homeowner association may have more of ability than we do, but again, that's up to them.
Then just another question. How were we able to work that in our agreement on Midland Square?
Well, you didn't, it wasn't an agreement to have it owner occupied. They were agreeing that they will be up for sale. Just like the neighborhood you are in, or any of you are in. How many of them are owner occupied and how many are rentals? That's something the city can't dictate. But on the Midland Square project, they agreed that yes, these will be for sale. They are for sale, not like Orchards on 19th where they are for rent. There's one owner on all 70 of them.
Single car garages?
Nope, our ordinance requires 2 cars, one covered, one can be uncovered, and then a half a stall for visitors.
Okay.
Now, it could be a single car garage, but they have to provide a second parking space for them, plus again, half a stall per unit for visitors.
Okay, any other questions for Steve,
Yeah.
council?
I have a question. Has the owner indicated why he wants to go from the R6 to the R3? I mean, is that just to add more units?
I'll let the owner or applicant answer that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Steve before we start entertaining some public comments? Okay, hearing none. I just need to see if there's a motion for us to go into a public comment period to discuss
Fair.
this ordinance.
So this isn't a public hearing. So you
Okay.
actually need a moment. You can just call that. Just to verify, I believe that, who is the applicant, Steve?
Doug
Doug
Terry?
Terry is
Okay.
probably under Janae
I think I
Terry.
had them first, but I just
Yep.
wanted to make sure that was who that was.
Yeah, so I can, if you want, you just need to go on the participants under the attendees and then click under the Terry name, just allow them to talk.
Janae, can you guys hear us? I'm trying to unmute you. But it's not letting me unmute you. Let's see.
How about
I just
now?
unmuted her.
Okay, let's do this then.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear you, Janae.
I can hear Janae.
Janae, you're up. We're going to ask you if you can, and each one of you talking, if you would keep it about 3 minutes. We've got a number of people who would like to talk on this, so please go ahead and give us your thoughts. Janae, you're first.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay, something weird just happened, but as long as I'm still here, that's great. Okay. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I appreciate you taking the time to hear from us. This is something that Doug and I have been passionate about for a lot of years. We've talked about it. We love the neighborhood, and we're just passionate about Roy. We love it here. We're excited to see the growth. We know that it is definitely not a lot of housing available and not a lot of affordable housing. So in speaking with some of my associates, so affordable housing, the median household and income of a Roy resident right now is around $60,100. Okay. So if you break that down, well, okay, I'm not going to go into that. I don't have time. So here's a couple questions. How would one reduce the building lot price by 1/3? So generally, building lots will go for around 90,000, if I'm correct. So we, trying to reduce that so that somebody with $60,000 income could buy the property and be able to build a home to make it affordable for the median household. Okay, how could Roy accommodate half of the prospective home buyers functioning from below the income level? So our thought is, if affordable housing is deemed to be a problem in Roy City, one approach to the problem would be to allow smaller lots and more PRUD with narrower roadways. So that way, and I know I had the privilege to work at Roy High for a couple of years, and I know that the demographics of Roy, we do have a lot of people that have, lower incomes, but, they want homes too. And I believe it's important for Roy to grow and improve so that we can keep it a great city. And I understand the desire for a rural area, but does that outweigh the people in the demographics that have a lower income that would like a home for their family? I feel like it will help a lot of younger couples be able to buy homes because generally starting out, they don't have a big income. And if my understanding is correct, that building the townhomes in that field will not change the neighbor's property and what they are able to do on their property, such as garden and have animals and the things that they enjoy doing. They won't have a field to look at, but it'll help a lot of families be able to afford a home. We're passionate about living in Roy. We love it here. The townhomes we want to build will definitely have an HOA so that they are nice. And I feel like it will increase the property value to the homes nearby. And thanks for hearing from me.
Mayor, you're muted.
Doug, Terry, you're up, and if you can keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, City Council, thanks for hearing me once again. I'm getting to be a regular here, but like Janae says, me and her are very passionate about this. We've been planning on doing this for numbers of years. The reason I'm not wanting to do the patio homes anymore, when I got into my budget and saw how much roads would be to put in there, it would just drive the cost of a patio home probably up over $300,000. And we chose not to go that route, to get something a little bit more affordable housing in line with what Roy City is looking at. Also, as you look at the property from Steve Parkinson's view, from an aerial view, my property is covered by massive trees. Probably most of my neighbors never even knew that I had all this acreage back there until I started trying to pursue this. There are storage units directly to the west of me. There are fourplexes to the south of me. To the north of me, there's a business. Further north, there's a fabrication shop, there's a machine shop. I mean, this is an ideal neighborhood to add some townhomes. We kind of got blindsided yesterday by somebody in the neighborhood posted billboards on everybody's house to go in and send everybody an email. Probably half them emails that you got, I've never even looked at my property, know what it's all about. But as you can see, it's very well manicured. There's a lot of trees there. The railroad tracks on the east gives me a barrier also. City planners thought this was a good idea. They approved me 100%. The current blueprints that I have are on Midland Drive. It's a place called Stone Creek. They are very high-end units. They will look nice in the area. They'll improve the area. When I started drawing plot maps in here, all of the parking was on my property. I didn't show for any property or parking on the street. So we're trying to comply. We're very passionate. We are very good neighbors. Most of these neighbors that might complain might think if we build townhomes, they might have to do away with their cows or sheep or whatever, but that's not so. We are very good neighbors and we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate the input. Okay, we now have Brenda Nelson. Brenda, if you can go ahead and tell us your thoughts and keep it at 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hold on, sorry. Trying to get her to unmute. I don't know why it's giving me grief.
I just unmuted myself. Did that work?
That works.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, how is everyone tonight? Thank you all for being here and listening to our fun stuff here. My name is Brenda Nelson. I'm a real estate broker in Roy, and I do represent Doug Terry, and he has asked for my assistance with this and trying to help them with their dream of developing their property. One thing I'd like to share with you is everyone should have the right to own and freely transfer their property and exercise and enjoy the benefits of ownership. Private property owners have the right to determine the highest and best use of their land, of course, working through appropriate government entities as yourself. I feel like with our current housing shortage, I do believe Doug Terry's vision is the highest and best use of his land. I do feel like it will bring change, newness to the city. I also feel like it could tie into what we're trying to do along 4,000 and the train station over there, and just kind of make Roy a really nice walkable community and just be a really great place. I would like to ask for you to consider Doug's rezone of the property as a positive contribution to the Roy area in that neighborhood. Thanks, you guys.
Brenda, thank you for your comments. Okay. We have, it looks like Melina Swartz. If you can go ahead and give us your thoughts and keep it to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Sorry, I've got to unmute her next. Let's see, Melanie. Okay, there you go.
Oh, Melanie. Yes, that's it.
It's all good. I've had my name be lots of things, and sometimes they're not flattering. And I would like to tell you too, I believe it's Morgan running all the tech here. Tom Spencer is actually my partner, so you don't have to unmute him because you can just leave him live here with me. I've been in front of a few of you when you were on planning commissions because I needed to rezone a house on 2700 that was light manufacturing because it was an eyesore. It was a historic house, and it was decrepit. Since that time, several of my other neighbors, also zoned light manufacturing, have rezoned into RE20. Most of this area is RE20 on the west side of the street, and it's R18 on the east side of the street. This would be a fundamental change in the character of the neighborhood to go to condos or townhomes at this time. I'm sure you all got my email, and I'm sure some of you have seen my planning commission talk, so I'm not going to beat that dead horse for you. But since Roy has such a patchwork of housing styles and availability, and we're moving forward with the focus on Roy City planning to try to develop distinct neighborhoods, this kind of housing is not consistent with what we have here. Having single family homes is consistent. We do have the walking trail. It will still be affordable housing for people coming here, assuming the market's not going to, be a problem here. But it's just an inconsistent use with the general land use, the future land use, and with the neighborhood altogether. So I respectfully request you all deny rezoning this to higher density. Thank you.
Melanie, thank you for your comments. Okay, we have a Thomas Spencer. If you'll go ahead and give us your thoughts and try to keep it to 3 minutes. Thank you.
And he's
Thomas.
right here.
I'm right here. So thank you for letting me speak. As Mr. Parkinson mentioned, this was denied twice before. And then when Mr. Terry reapproached it in 2018 with medium density and it was approved, we as neighbors all felt that was a good compromise between Mr. Terry wanting to maximize what he can do with his property, but also limit what the impact on the neighborhood. A few concerns that we've had that have come up is we're directly underneath the flight path into Ogden Airport. Every day we can see planes coming in twice a week. We got a Legionnaire, the 35s out of Hill come over, civil aviation. And I know that's been a concern lately when we had that little spike a few months ago. And I know one of the concerns was the density of Roy around the airport, how we've all grown up around the airport, and there's no place for an accident to safely happen, for lack of a better term. Also with this property, we also have to worry about the railroad that comes through right behind it, carrying hazardous cargo. About a month ago, if I recall, we had a small derailment up at the intersection at 4800. A big derailment with a hazardous cargo would be tremendous impact. And the more people we put next to the tracks, the more impact that would be. Along with that density, we're currently the highest in Weber County and the 6th highest city in all of Utah. And just cramming more houses in would just increase that further. With the walkability aspect, using a rough 8 blocks per mile and a Google Map help, the rail trail is about 160 yards from the property. I use the intersection of 52 and 27 as a reference point. Harmon's, Wells Fargo, the 1900, 5600 area is just over a mile and a half. Kent's at 3500 and 56 is about, again, a little over a mile and a half. Winnegar's at 35 and 48 is just under a mile and a half. And the Front Runner station, which is being sold as, it'd be great to be able to walk down there, is actually just under 2 miles away. I'm fairly healthy, and I don't consider a mile and a half to 2 miles to be a walkable distance. So in addition to what Mel has said, I just want to bring up those points and request that you deny the proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas. We appreciate the input. We now have Samantha Tilton. If she would like to go ahead and make comment and keep her comments to 3 minutes, we appreciate it. Samantha?
Mayor, there's a few people that are having trouble accessing it. Samantha Tilton has messaged me as well as another gentleman. As of right now, I'm going to just move them to the bottom and hope that they can log on in a little bit. So if you just want to move on to the next one, I believe Tim Higgs is next.
That is correct. So we'll wait for Samantha and see if we can hook up. But is Tim Higgs, is he there? If he would, just go ahead and give us his thoughts and keep it to 3 minutes if possible. Thank you, Tim.
There we go. Okay. Tim will have to unmute himself. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, super. So during a recent council meeting, Mr. Mayor, you brought up just some points dealing with the economy and the population and the affordable housing. I thought it would be good just to mention a couple of those because I think they're very pertinent to this discussion as well. During that meeting, you talked about the average monthly mortgage amount in the area where Davis County right now is at $1,500 a month. That's the median. Weber County is at $964 a month. So Weber County is already far less than Davis County. You also talked about the median price of homes in the state being $361,000 median and $269,000 as the median price for homes in Roy. So I thought as we kind of look at these, we kind of keep those in mind of where we're sitting. And then everybody seems to be still relating all of this discussion or much of this discussion around the affordable housing and Senate Bill 34. I just want to, as you mentioned just a couple of weeks ago, that the law around that is that we need to adopt a moderate income housing plan to deal with growth. That is the way that it's stated and what we need to consider when we talk about the affordable housing in the Senate Bill 34. As I have kind of followed this through, I've lived in Roy my whole life. I've lived on 2700 half of my life. I thought it was really interesting when I went to the planning committee meeting on this. Pardon me. During that planning committee meeting, there were 4 people who were for this. Those 4 people were the applicant, the realtor who lives in North Ogden and doesn't have to deal with this in where she lives, the lender, and also a friend that lives across the city. At the same time, there were 9 residents on 2700 within a quarter mile of this property who spoke, and every one of those 9 people were against this. There was not one person on 2700 who is near this property that was for it. However, when it came to vote, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to pass, which I didn't understand because at some point you have to look, even understanding the property owner rights, you have to look at what the residents are asking for. Sorry, was there a question there? Okay, so I just thought it beneficial, and I'll try to be brief here. I sent to Morgan an active listing of Roy and the cities immediately touching Roy. And I thought it would be good to see, if we're talking Affordable Housing Act, let's see how many homes we have in Roy that are under $200,000. Let's see how many homes in Roy that we have under $300,000 and compare that to what the surrounding cities have. And let's just see how compliant we are. So I don't know if you can bring that up on screen or if you just want me to talk to it, Mr. Mayor.
Tim, I've seen the data, but I think you're just going to have to talk to it because I'm not sure if the council's got it, but go ahead and speak
No
to it.
problem. Okay, I looked at anything, and you have this in your mail, but I looked at everything that, and I had this run by a realtor just yesterday. So this is anything that's active, under contract, or sold in the last 60 days. Under $300,000. Hooper has 0. Washington Terrace had 2. Roy had 16. There's 16 homes in Roy right now, or in the last 60 days, under 300. West Haven, of course, has a ton with the development. They have 113. If we look a little bit deeper and say, okay, let's go to 200,000. Of Roy and our connecting cities, who has homes under $200,000 that can be purchased? Hooper, 0. Washington Terrace, 0. Roy, 9. We have 9 under 200,000. West Haven, 0. We are the only city where there is a home There's 9 of them in the last 60 days, under $200,000. If we then go just a little bit further and we look at Davis County, and I tried to, again, connect it to connecting cities. Sunset, under 300,000, they have 1. Clinton, under 300,000, has 5. Clearfield, under 300,000, has 29. And if we look at 200,000 in those same cities, the only one that has any is Clinton, and Clinton had 4, and Clearfield had 14. So as I look at these numbers, and to me, when we talk affordable housing, we're talking the amount per month, what the mortgage is going to be, and how many homes are currently available on the market for that price. I think Roy is doing more than our part here. We talk, and Mr. Parkinson talked a little bit about what we mean on density. To me, density is households, families, not buildings. And when we're talking about increasing this to 34 units, and each of those units has 2 parking stalls, to me, what that means for 2,700 and 5,600 is 68 more cars twice a day. And as I go up and down 5,600 and along 2,700 each day, I don't want to deal with 68 more cars until we can get the ability to have an easier access for vehicles to get around. Maybe when 5,600 is addressed. But at this point in time, I think we are doing what's required by law and adopting a moderate income housing plan to deal with growth. And we have more in the 300,000 range and the 200,000 range than any of our connecting cities. So I would really suggest that we weigh heavily on what the residents are asking for here, and that you would vote as a no on this. Thank you very much.
Tim, thanks for your comments. Okay, we have a DTJ. It wasn't clear in terms of the name. Is there somebody out there who's going to share their thoughts?
Mayor, I never heard back from that person, and I don't see them having registered anywhere here. So I don't know who they are or any
Okay.
information about them. So we might just have to pass on that comment.
Not a problem. Then let's go to Stacy Warner. If she'll go ahead and speak up if she would, and see if she can share her thoughts in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Sorry, before you start, Stacy, I know that there's a few people that have raised their hand in the attendees. So you won't be able to speak off of a raised hand. If you want to send me an email, I can usually respond to it pretty quickly. So sorry, I just wanted to make note of that. Thank you.
All right, well, excuse me. Thanks for letting me have the time. My name is Stacy Warner, and I am also a Roy resident. I have a blended family here with a total of 6 children. And having lived in Roy for years, we're excited to hear about the potential for 2,200 potential new jobs being established and the benefit it's going to provide to Roy overall. It's obvious how much updating the city needs to support all of this growth coming into Weber County. Here's my concern. My children who are going to be of age to be moving out on their own and making their own home purchases are not going to be able to find affordable places to live. People are going to West Haven and Hooper to live and find affordable housing right now. And this is why I support the rezoning of Doug Perry's property and why I think it would be a great fit for our community. I want my children and many others to be able to find affordable housing in the very near future. And it sounds like there's some Roy residents that are afraid of this change. I think we have to make some changes to progress, and we need nice housing. And these would be brand new homes under $300,000. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stacy, for your input. Okay, let's go to Mackenzie Peck. If you're there, go ahead and give us your thoughts, and please keep it under 3 minutes. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't see Mackenzie. I don't think that she's been logged in yet.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Been an issue. I'm on the phone with IT right now. We do have a few people that are having trouble logging in. There might have been an issue with not being able to join after the meeting had started. But I do think that some of the attendees have joined since the meeting started. So for those that are watching on the live stream, if you are trying to join the meeting and are not able to, I would suggest to just email your comments. Because we don't know why it's not allowing you access to the meeting. So.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. How about Joseph Fowler? Is Joseph there with us? And if he is, go ahead and share your thoughts and give it hopefully in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Joe actually wanted to speak on the regular public comment section.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move him over to regular public comment.
Okay.
Okay, how about Dave? That's small print. I'm having a hard time reading.
McElrath, I believe.
McElrath. Okay. Dave, are you there? And if you will, please go ahead and share your thoughts.
He just has to unmute himself there. There you go.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Dave.
All right. I'm here with my wife as well. I will take credit as being the person that lives across town. We bought a patio home just off of Airport Road. Behind our home to the south is 2 full sets of townhomes that are kept up in good condition. The neighbors are good people. We've not had a problem with this. My backyard is probably not 100 yards away from where the airplane crashed. So my take on it is I have a very good understanding of living close to the airport as well as living close to multi-family housing. The people that are right directly behind us, we live in an HOA, and this is a 55 and older neighborhood. Typically, people that are over the age 55 usually have difficulties living next to people that have children and dogs and all that stuff, but I'm not seeing that kind of a situation here in our neighborhood. I firmly believe that Roy does need to have more multi-family housing. The entire Wasatch Front of that, I spent 2 years in Japan and living in multi-family housing, and that's where we're headed. I think that keeping an old Roy is a wonderful thing. I think it's great that people want to have that for their future, but
Change is also good.
Yeah, change is good. The underlying thing and facts are that the Wasatch Front is growing at a rate that's higher than it's ever been. The state of Utah has been the highest growing state in the country for a period of time. We see it on the freeways. We see it everywhere. A lot of those jobs are Hill Air Force Base jobs. What I see being needed is for Roy to stand up and be a good state citizen by saying we'll have multi-family housing here so that the traffic up and down the Wasatch Front doesn't grow. I'd rather see people from Hill Air Force Base living here and working here than living here and driving to Salt Lake and back every day. As far as the traffic issues that are involved here on 2700, my take on that is that Roy has a basic transportation problem when you're heading east and west. There are 3 thoroughfares that go that direction. If one plugs up, it starts throwing traffic on the side streets. If they're not plugged up, the traffic on those side streets isn't in my opinion, significant. So if we need to talk about infrastructure, I think there needs to be less railroad crossings and more overpasses to help with that. I see that bringing in families into that area is a great thing. I did live within 3 blocks of that property, so I'm familiar with the railroad tracks and the sounds that are there as well. I think this housing would also provide somewhat of a noise block for the neighbors in that area. I do respect their right to have animals, and I wish I had animals in my backyard. But overall, I think we just have to face up to the fact that the Wasatch Front is growing, and it's kind of our responsibility to be a participant in helping that be the best thing that can be. That's all I've got right now.
Mayor, if I could just say a couple things. I'm Carrie McElrath, Dave's wife, and we are friends of Janae and Doug. And Dave and I both feel that bringing this in would bring beautification to 2700. Not to say that it's not needed down there or anything, but it would bring that into kind of a facelift for that area, so to speak. And I just hope that the council would just take that into consideration and just approve it. And we just appreciate the time we've had to address our comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your input. Okay, that's good. Kate, if you're there, please go ahead and give us your thoughts. And if you can, keep it about 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Can you hear
can. Go
me?
ahead.
Oh, great, perfect. So thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to just give support for the project. I think that we need to have affordable housing in our area. I think it'll drive younger families into our community, and which in turn they'll be spending their money in Roy and boost our economy. I believe that having townhouses in that affordability range will also help our younger single adults going out into the community and giving them a place that they can afford without having to rent. I also believe that having the condo, or not the condo, I'm sorry, the townhomes with the HOA and having that in place ensures that it will be manicured and it will be a facelift, as the former person had just said. And so I just wanted to voice my support for the project, and if there's any questions that you have, I'd love to answer them, but I hope that you vote to support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your input. Okay, Jim Sachs, if you're there, please go ahead and give us your thoughts. And if you can, keep it to 3 minutes. Jim?
Jim was not able to log on. I did send him another link to try and get him logged on.
Okay, Morgan, we'll see if we can get them before we get done. Sarah, if you're there, please go ahead and give us your thoughts. If you can, keep it to 3 minutes. Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. I am also a Roy resident. I live right on Midland Drive, so I know about traffic. I feel like we need this type of housing in our community. I sell real estate in Roy. I sell real estate all around northern Utah, and I grew up in Ogden, so I'm used to a very diverse area. But Roy has stolen my heart. I love it here. I want my kids here. I just moved my mother into the senior community right off of 4,000. And I love the direction that Roy's going. Yes, if there's another 50 vehicles on the road, yeah, it's going to be irritating. But regardless of whether they live here in Roy or they're driving through to get to Hooper or wherever else is growing, it's not going to make much of a difference. I feel like affordable, nice housing, if you do pull statistics, which it sounds like a few people have done, we do have some housing in Roy that's available. They are old, beat up homes. So that's why there are so many available. People are trying to sell polished homes that are not necessarily kept well, are well kept. So to have some brand new housing where my older children can move and feel the excitement of being homeowners is extremely exciting to me. So I really hope that you guys are considering this.
Sarah, thank you for your input. Okay, we've gone through the list. I just need to check. Morgan, is there anybody else who basically was planning to talk that has not had that opportunity? Are you aware?
Yes, there's one last lady that's logging in. She's logged in a few times, but every time she logs in, it logs in as Janae Terry again. So she's trying to log in right now. That's Samantha Tilton. So I'm trying to see if it's gonna let her log in. So, okay, Samantha, oh, hold on. Maybe we lost it.
Hello?
Is this Samantha?
Hello?
Is this Samantha?
Yes, this is Samantha.
Please go ahead, Samantha, we've got you. If you can, keep your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for letting me have the time to speak for just a moment. So I previously lived in Roy. I currently live in Ogden. I'm a single mother with 5 children. And so affordable housing is definitely something that I'm looking for as a single income household. Also, I would love to live in Roy again. The community of Roy is just so, there's so much pride in Roy and there's so much community spirit in Roy. And it's definitely a place that I would like to bring my family back to. But I am, like I said, in a position where looking for affordable housing and having limited options, it can be really challenging. And the market kind of being as it is, there may be some options that are there, but houses can get under contract within the day of them listing. And so it can be a very arduous process trying to find housing that is within our budget and that meets the needs for my family. And so a project such as this is something that would allow someone like me the opportunity to come back into a community that we would love to continue being a part of under circumstances that work for our family. And so I just encourage you to consider rezoning and approving this sort of a project. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your input. Okay, Morgan, I don't see anybody else. Have we pretty well got most of the public comments then that we planned through to the council?
Yes, regarding the proposed zone change, we have gotten through all of the public comments that I saw that were able to log on. We do have a few people for the regular public comment portion. So if those guys will stay on and just be patient, we'll get to that next. Mayor, I did want to let you know that obviously that document I sent you, I've made a few changes on. If you get onto the computer and just update it again and take a look at it, it should be up to date and you'll be able to see everyone who's requested regular comment in the next portion of our meeting.
Okay, how about if we do this? I'm afraid if I do, I'll probably drop out. I tried that a little bit before, but if you will do me, I'll read through the ones I've got. And then obviously you've added some more on the end. Where I leave off, if you'll go ahead and just read the names, I think the individual can go ahead and make that comment. So help me through this process, would you, Morgan?
Of course.
Okay, then council, we basically have had the public comments. Now, council, do you have any other comments, anything you want to ask before we move? Anything else, council?
I have a question. How square foot wise about how big will these units be?
Steve, you might be the better.
Anybody?
No, that'd be a question for Doug Terry. I don't know.
Okay.
Janae, do I have the right person?
So need to unmute.
Can you hear us?
Yes, this is Doug Terry. I would guess they're going to be 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath with 2-car garage.
Okay.
Any other comments, council? Okay, seeing none, then let's go ahead and proceed. Do I have a motion then to approve ordinance number 20-4 to amend the general plan, future land use map from medium density to single family, medium density, single family residential to very high density, multi-residential at the 5154 South, 2700 West location? Do I have a motion?
This is Diane, and this is a very difficult dilemma, and I just want to maybe head this up. I believe that when you have two sets of property owner rights, you've got the people who own the property and then they're nearby. It's a very difficult balance. And with that being said, you're trying to make sure that the property owner that's requesting the change has a reasonable request. And although that's very difficult, I do believe this is probably reasonable in today's day. And so I will go ahead and move for that motion. Move to that motion.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Wilson to approve, and I have a second from Councilmember Saxon. Okay, this is a roll call vote. So Morgan, let's go ahead and roll call vote this.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul. Joe, you're on mute.
Nay.
Councilmember Burrell,
Nay.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, council. We'll go ahead and then with that announcement and it approves, we now can move to ordinance number 20-5 to amend the zoning map from R16 to R18, single family residential, to R3 or R4, multifamily residential at 5154 South, 2700 West. Council, just for understanding, it's important that we had to have the first ordinance approved, as Steve indicated. Otherwise, we could not then approve the second. And so since the first ordinance was approved, that is number 20-4, we now have in front of you ordinance number 20-5. So with that, do you have any
Mayor, if I may
comments?
for a second, I would, again, from staff, I would hope the council continue with what the planning commission had done and kind of what the conversation was, that make a condition that it's townhomes only. Again, that guarantees you what will be there. Even if Mr. Terry sells it without developing, that continues on the land.
Great point, Steve. That is important to this process. So council, any comments on ordinance number 20-5?
I have a question for poor Steve again. The planning commission looked at the proposal. Can you share, besides they recommended approval, what was their logic, their thinking, their weighted balance?
Well, it's hard to say exactly what they were thinking, because I can't get in all 7 of their minds to do that. But through the years that I've been with this planning commission, and several of them have been on for 5+ years, some of them are new, of course, but most of them look at it on the same aspect that Councilwoman Wilson looked at, is balancing property rights of the owner and property rights of those around it, and then also looking at the need for additional housing. They themselves, have kids that are looking for houses. They have kids that want to stay in Roy, but want to find a good place to live. So that would be my only comment, is it's kind of the same things that you guys are looking at and discussing.
Okay, thanks for the question. Brian, any other comments before we take the vote? Hearing none, and if you would then, do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 20-5 to amend the zoning map from R16 to R1R8 to single-family residential to R3 or R4 multifamily residential at 5154 South, 2700 West. And with that, a stipulation that that property will be, property on that will be townhome only development. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll approve.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
okay, I have a motion to approve. Who had the second?
And
Ann, thank you. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Morgan, if you'll go ahead and do that.
Councilmember Burrell,
Nay.
Councilmember Wilson,
Again, it's very, very difficult, but I will say aye.
Councilmember Paul. You're on mute.
Nay.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council. We've got that. Okay, let's go into the public comment period. If you're on the line and you'd like to make comment, I'll read your name. I'd ask you to keep the conversation or your comments down to 3 minutes, but you're open to talk about anything that you feel you'd like to talk about. And with that, we'll go ahead and begin with James Carpenter. James, if you're still on, please go ahead and make your comments and share it with us. James, you will need to unmute. There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today in front of the council, kind of. And I'd like to thank Morgan also for setting this up. I'm going to talk briefly about the proposed downtown form-based code dated March 6, 2020, which is on your work session later on today. And, Mayor Dandoy, sorry I misspelled your name in the letter that I sent out to you. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I am speaking on behalf of the Utah Sign Association, International Sign Association. Both associations work with jurisdictions throughout the country, creation of beneficial and enforceable sign regulations. I would just like to mention briefly about some of the issues that we have and some of the concerns we have. And I'm certainly not going to go over the letter or the email that you received last week with some of our concerns, just a couple of the highlights. The proposed ordinance changes do not support, we believe, the economic vitality of local businesses, especially during these challenging and unprecedented economic times. And for instance, the proposed standards for wall and monument signs represent a reduction in the allowable sign area and height. We do not recommend nor support the reduction in allowable sign area or height, especially at this time. And so, therefore, due to these issues, and there's a number of other issues too that are stated in the April 17th letter, really strongly request that the council make no changes at this time to the sign regulations through the form-based code draft dated March 6, 2020. And I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
James, thanks for your input. Okay, Nancy Fuller, I think it's Fultner. If you are on, please go ahead and unmute and go ahead and share your thoughts.
My thoughts today are on the property of Janae and Doug Terry's. And I would really like it to pass. And I think our children and our grandchildren need more space to live in that's more updated instead of what we do have out there. Thank you.
Nancy, thank you for your comments. Okay, let's go to Kevin Homer. Kevin, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute and share your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate y'all implementing this technology so that we can get together and have these meetings. There have been many times over the past couple of years when I had been out of town or out of the area on either business or pleasure. And I really, really missed being able to come to the meetings and see your lovely smiling faces. I would suggest, I have two suggestions. First of all, let's think about what's going to happen after we get out of this, the COVID restrictions and all of those things, and we start being able to associate with one another a little bit more. I still think that this type of meeting, an online technology meeting like this, would be a very good thing to continue in the future. Let's consider it the normal thing to do, not the exceptional thing to do. That's my suggestion. The other thing I would suggest is if you make it a little more interactive, part of the Zoom technology that we're using here is to allow for group texting, and it provides just a little more interaction with people. That might help too if we were to implement that as part of these meetings. The one question I have is, will this Zoom meeting continue as part of the work session that's coming up after the normal general section? That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Kevin, thanks for your input. We're going to stay with the Zoom going into the workshop, but we're going to kind of limit the discussion just to the council, but definitely those who are tuned in can hear.
Mayor, this meeting will actually end right after the city council meeting is adjourned, and we'll be entering into a separate Zoom meeting, but they still will be able to watch on YouTube.
That's correct. You're right. Thank you, Morgan. Okay. Let's go ahead to see if Dennis Brown is with us and he'd like to make a comment. Please, Dennis, go ahead, unmute and share your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight. My wife, Clara, and I have been long-term citizens of the Roy for a long time. And I want to talk about the form-based code that I see proposed. A couple of our concerns is that on page 27, it says that it allows residents in the core A and B area. I feel like if we allow residency, either high density residency or single family home in the core A and B area, that'll take away space that could be used for businesses to go in that area to provide sales tax in that area. So I feel like allowing residents to stay in core A and B is not a good idea. The other concern I have is just briefly talking about the landscaping on the medians and the landscape on the trees. I sold that property on 1900 West about 3 years ago that has the orchards on it right now. And during that time I owned that property, the tree roots are constantly pushing up the sidewalks. The city is having to replace the sidewalks. The trees had to be pruned, and there was a lot of maintenance issues there. And if you have a meeting going down the center of the street, especially on these back streets that are being proposed in the FBC codes, it restricts left-hand turns. And the last thing I just want to say in conjunction to this is that my concern is mainly that the volume of criteria in the FBC book, it looks like it'll be discourage development. I would be more in favor of Roy City using regular mixed use zoning and just use a few of the components of the FBC that maybe the city council really likes. My wife, I've had a chance to drive by the Grumman building, the Farmington station that had the high density housing around the perimeter of the building. And we've driven by the Junction area and seen that area. And there's some good things there, but I just feel like having high density housing in the downtown center of the city is not a very good idea at this time. Thank you very much for your time. And Ann, I hope your cough gets better soon. Thank you.
Dennis, thank you for your input. Okay, we have, I believe, Sean Powers. It's on the line. He'd like to share some thoughts. Sean, are you there?
Sean never made it online, so I don't have him available. I believe the next person I have is Joe Fowler.
Okay, Joe, if you can go ahead and unmute and go ahead and share your thoughts. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So my name is Joe Fowler. My family is the owners of the Burger Bar, as I know many of you here on the council, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to allow me to speak. I really appreciate Ms. Wilson with taking the time to reach out with the form-based code kind of information. I thought that was very helpful, and I hope that if you can in the future for big changes, a little notice like that was really helpful. anyways, a couple things I wanted to bring up as my family, we are really not excited about that form-based code being implemented. We think it would really hurt business in Roy. Just as far as if you think about places where they have medians in the roads, like Layton City. I avoid Layton City as much as possible. I can't stand trying to flip U-turns 5 or 6 times to get to a certain place. And it would just anytime you limit access to your business, you're going to limit the amount of people that are going to come to your business and spend money. Also, the upkeep and the maintenance would definitely be a factor. We're right smack dab in the middle of that core that you guys are talking about developing. Those codes would really restrict any sort of building that I wanted to, or any upgrades in my building could have some significant costs involved if I wanted to make my business more profitable or more, I guess, how do I explain that? Make it run better, more efficient. That could incur a penalty. If I do a 30% increase in my size of my building, I would have to redo basically the entire building to come up to a form-based code, is my understanding as I read it. That could cost a fortune, would bankrupt probably most businesses, and I think we're a pretty healthy business. I don't necessarily think that having a single kind of a Park City like form where everybody has the same color business is what we're looking for in Roy. I don't think it's kind of what our city looks like, and I think it would be really harmful in the long run. We're not Salt Lake City, we're not Park City, and big high buildings right along the road would not be good for us. So we would like to respectfully that you would oppose the form-based code and maybe go to a mixed use like the other gentleman mentioned, and take some parts that we really like and use those and integrate them into the city to make it look more beautiful and increase business overall. Thank you very much for your time.
Bill, thanks for your input. Okay, we do have a Dennis. We got Dennis. Now we got Melissa Schmidt. Is Melissa there?
Yes.
Melissa, go ahead and unmute and go ahead and share your thoughts. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Hope all of you and your families are healthy and doing well. My name is Melissa Schmidt. I am speaking tonight on behalf of McDonald's Corporation, as well as our owner-operators, Alan and Corey Watson, as the landowner and business owners respectively. This is regarding the McDonald's located at 5413 South 1900 West. My comments also are relative to the proposed form-based code. Our concern with the FBC is the restrictions placed on future reinvestments and the effect on our ability to generate sales. The top concerns with the draft relates to McDonald's would be the signage, reducing our visibility by not having a pole sign, the drive-through. If we would have to pull the building up to the street, we'd probably be, if we would be allowed a drive-through, would be a reverse drive-through, which would significantly reduce our drive-through sales percentage, which is currently at 79% of our sales. And unfortunately, in times like this, we've obviously been able to provide a great community service by keeping our drive-through open. And then lastly, the setback. We would lose our bypass lane, which would create stacking from the drive-through lane and just make it more inconvenient for customers to especially exit our site. As you may or may not know, this location has been serving the community for 48 years. From what I'm told by our operator, this restaurant was the first Playland and drive-through in Utah. Not sure if that's fact, but it's probably somewhere there. If it wasn't the first, it had to have been one of the first. I know our operators are involved in the community, supporting local sports, cultural events. I know they host their annual work party at the Roy Aquatic Center. I just know that they like having roots there. They're not just running a business, but they're a community player, and I know they have enjoyed the partnership of the city. But if this code goes through at such time that we would like to reinvest, that it just won't be viable for us. In 2009, I know we had a great partnership with the city in our rebuild where we completely scraped the building, added a new play place, a side-by-side drive-through, modern customer experience. Again, it was accomplished in close partnership with the city. The reinvestments continued in 2015 with the addition of what we call experience of the future elements. And next year, the owner operator plans to continue reinvesting by doing an interior remodel, which would include updated seating, restrooms, and decor. However, with the restrictions that the FBC would place on us, it would significantly reduce our ability to generate sales and attract customers to the point that the business wouldn't be viable. So for these reasons, McDonald's as a landowner and Alan and Corey Watson as the business owners are opposed to the FBC proposal and respectfully request that the city not proceed with this draft.
Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate your inputs. Okay. That's the end of my list. Morgan, go ahead if you have more names on that would they like to share in public comment.
As of right now, I have one, Jim from Common Sense. If he wants to speak, I think that's the last one I have on mine. As far as everyone else that's still an attendee, if you did not get a chance to speak, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll make room for you at the end here. Okay, go ahead, Jim. Thank you. Jim, can you hear us? As far as everyone else is still an attendee, if you did not get a chance to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll make room for you at the end here. Oh, I believe he's got a delay.
Okay, we don't want too much time. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment?
So yes, Mr. Mayor, my name is Jim Sachs. I'm with Common Sense Stores. We've been there on the corner of 56. Oops.
Jim, go ahead. We can hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me. Okay, great. Been on the corner of 5600 South and 1900 West since, gosh, I think 2000, spring of 2001. He said he could hear me.
Jim, we can hear you. Go ahead. Right now, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me right now, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had my TV on with you on it. So anyway, it was delaying. We've been on the corner of 5600 South and 1900 West since spring of 2001. And, you know, we've enjoyed your community. You've got some great people there. I've spent a lot of time there. I was involved in the everything from the design to the construction of that facility. And we'd like to thank the city of Roy for the opportunity to do business on that corner all these years. As far as the discussion for form-based code, and we have always avoided form-based code in potential developments. We had to give up a location in Riverton because of form-based code, and we've looked at other areas that had that as a requirement, and you know, we decided to not invest in those areas because basically it forces us to take the back of our building and back it up to the street and bring parking around to the back of the store, or what in our minds is the back of the store for customers. We feel like that's not inviting to the customer, and we feel like you know, we're not able to put our best face forward, and in fact we feel like we've got our backs to our potential customers, And we would prefer not to do business that way. Now, I know that you're not telling me that I'm going to have to change my facility currently and razz and rebuild it and put the back of it to the street. But I am concerned that if we ever were to want to do a remodel to that facility, or, potentially do, a remodel to the car wash or other things we have on that property, that we may be required to do indeed that, which, as one of your prior commenters said, would be a huge financial burden that would just be unaffordable. So I appreciate your time this evening. I would be interested in keeping abreast of, how you guys proceed with your thoughts on form-based code. And, we of course wish you guys the best of luck in your discussions. And thank you for the time to speak this evening.
Jim, thanks for your input. Okay, Morgan, I believe we've got everybody. Is that correct?
Yep, I think that was everybody, Mayor. Yeah.
Okay. We'll go out of public comment period. We got a lot of input, obviously, on a variety of different topics. What we'd like to do now is we'd like to go ahead and do the presentation. Matt's, you're going to give us a conversation dealing with the 2021 budget. If you'd like to go ahead. I assume you have charts.
I am going to start sharing my screen. All righty. As you guys know that we're mayor and council, as you guys know that we've been working hard on our 2021 budget. What seems like it was forever ago, but only a month ago, I was planning on doing a work session. It was before any of this COVID-19 came out. Really the purpose of that is we had year to year, we have a strategic plan that was adopted in 2017. And I wanted to go over this strategic plan so everybody knows why we do what we do in the budget. I write a little message at the previous budget and explain the strategic plan. These are pretty much goals of what the city wants to become. I want to read this to you. I need it. The primary directive of the strategic plan is that Roy City exists to enhance the quality of life for all members of our community through planning, visionary leadership, and by providing the highest quality of municipal service in an efficient, courteous manner. In order to achieve these goals, there's strategic directives that's how we achieve that final goal. Through these goals of community image and pride, economic development and vitality, public infrastructure funding and management, workforce development and operational excellence, and traffic flow and management is the 5 directives that we've been focusing in prior years to accomplish our budget. That's where we've been putting our money. I can go through each one of those, but there's obvious changes to COVID-19. There's unknown economic impact that we've been discussing over this last month. It's hard for us to see what's going to happen next week, and we're projecting next year. Just so you know that sales tax, the numbers that we have now are from 2 months ago. 2 months ago, the economy was booming, everything was good. So now we're relying on a lot of different people to try to come up with our numbers for next year. Also, we have an economic impact to Class C roads. Just for instance, I've heard a study that 45% less people are on I-15. If you've driven to Salt Lake in the morning, it's pretty easy to believe because you don't have to stop on the way there anymore. But the biggest question is when are we going to be back to normal? That's a question everybody's asking, and that's an answer that we don't have right now. But what we need to do with this budget is that we need to build an adaptive budget. It only takes 10 days to advertise and modify this city budget. What we've been planning is we obviously know there's going to be impacts to sales tax. We obviously know that there's going to be impacts to Class C roads. And so we've been looking at the budget of ways to be adaptive with that. Some suggest that we're going to come out of this booming, just like we were before. We have a plan for that. Others suggest that there would be a 30% decrease in sales tax, and we need to have a plan for that too. So we're addressing all these different matters, but we know that there's going to be some type of impact. And just remember that it only takes 10 days to modify the city budget. Now, the intent of this discussion today on May is just to give you where we're at in the budget, to show you, typically speaking, we were looking at these strategic directives. Now we're kind of in a survival mode that we need to know what's going on with the economy before we start allocating funds for expenditures. To get in the nitty gritty of what we're doing, the tentative budget by law has to be submitted to the council by May 5th. We'll be able to do so. So that's basically a couple weeks from now. It's our next planned city council meeting. So we'll have everything there for you to see. And then by that, we can do work sessions or anything, but by June 16th, we need to adopt the budget. There's been talks that the state is going to prolong these discussions, and they're working at a special session right now. We haven't heard back from them to know exactly what's happening, but we're just planning on going our normal mode right now and having that tentative budget ready. So with that being said, I look forward to the 5th. If you guys have any questions, you can freely ask them at this point.
Okay, council, any questions on what Matt's talking about and what he plans to do?
Good job, Matt.
Thanks,
Okay.
Diane.
Okay, let me just share a couple of thoughts with you. Tomorrow morning, Weber County is going to make a public announcement, news announcement that basically says is that May 1st, they're going to start doing a soft opening. What that means is that you're going to start to see some of the local businesses start to open. What appears not going to happen is we're probably not going to see for quite a while until we get there's more data, is what we see the bigger openings that deals with the municipality. I do not believe, okay, we're going to see probably most of the summer aquatic center opening, complex opening. They're just going to put some real restrictions, and we're waiting to see. I've asked them specifically today if they would give us some insight of what they basically are anticipating when we might be able to go ahead and start opening up city council meetings. For a better word, our aquatic centers, any places that's going to have more than 10 or 20 people. And hopefully we'll have an answer next week when that will be. But if you read what the governor's saying, I'm indicating to you is I don't think we're going to see that at least until September. That means having our large city council meetings are going to be delayed. We may be on teleconferencing for a long time. And unfortunately, if we're not opening up these businesses that we have, like the complex and the aquatic center, then our challenge is going to be is we're not getting the revenue. And if we're not getting the revenue, then those are expenses that we're incurring that we're just going to have to continue to incur. And it just is what it is. And so we'll just have to assess after we get more information. I will indicate to you at least the county, and it appears the state after May 1st, looks like they might start opening up businesses. If they believe from a health risk perspective that we're in a good position to do that, then obviously that's a good thing for us. But do not look forward for any time in the near future where we'll start to have big mass gatherings. It's just something that they have to work through, okay? Any other comments or questions associated with the budget? Okay, let me just recap what Matt just said. He basically says is that next city council meeting, there will be a budget handed to us. Not sure how deep it's going to go. It used to be about 105 pages. With that budget, I will indicate to you there's a lot of reading, but it will be, in my opinion, it'll be more of a tentative budget because there's a good chance sometime after it's approved, based on what we see in revenue streams, what we see in expenses, it could very well come back and the council will have to make an adjustment as we move forward with it. But just recognize that is a law that says you've got to see it. And by the end of June, you have to approve it. We in fact have to have an approved budget by law at the end of June. So we're going to ask you to spend a lot of time looking at it, invest the time into it. It's important to make sure that we get as best we can in the budget that's approved to move us into the 2020 fiscal year. Okay, if there's no more comments, then Matt, how
I
about
have
us?
one question
I
on
have a
that.
comment.
Go ahead.
When we're talking about June 16th needing to be approved, is that because it's our second council meeting? For example, if we had a council meeting at the end of June, actually by law, it's the end of June, but we're saying the 16th because it's our second council meeting. Clarification on that.
We can actually approve at the first council meeting. One of the problems is we don't have the tax rate to approve along with it. And so it just has to be by law approved prior to the end of the fiscal year. Or not, yeah, of our fiscal year. So that's our last scheduled. If we needed to do a special session, we could always do that, but we always plan to do it our last council meeting in June.
Thanks.
That's
Just wanted
correct.
to clarify that. Thanks.
Okay, I heard another comment. Somebody else has another question?
Not regarding the budget. I will wait till we're finished with the budget discussion.
But
Okay.
I just got corrected. It would be June 22nd is the last day we can approve. Sorry, Jan.
Hey, can you hear me? So I accidentally disconnected myself for a minute. So I didn't hear everything you were talking about. I hit the wrong button. It took me a minute to get back on, but can we have like a budget meeting like in the basement where we can all have our social distancing in that big room where we had that last meeting and go over stuff in there?
Right now, I would personally advise us to only limit ourselves to 10 people down there. And
Yeah.
so it would be hard to invite any public there to
Yeah,
have that type of meeting.
I meant just us as a council.
It
Could
would
we
have
not do
to
that?
it would have to be open to the public. We
Oh,
could try to
okay.
set up something like this, and I can meet individually as well to go over different things.
Oh, okay.
To try to explain it as well. I personally would have a difficult time meeting as a group and inviting public members in because we don't know how many people would come. And anytime we're in as a body, we would have to have the public involved. We need to have them involved.
Okay. Because
So-
I'd heard that as of May 1st, that they were going to maybe say you could have meetings of 50 people or less, but who knows?
Yeah, and at that time, we can make that determination.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, perfect. Then Matt, if you go ahead and give us your city manager report.
So I know we have another meeting to go to, so I'll try to keep it brief, but I do have quite a bit of stuff to go over. First off, every year we always do the summer hours for the city. That allows us to open it a little earlier Monday through Thursday and close a little later. We're proposing that would be, or that we're planning on having that May 25th, the week of, to start those summer hours. So it's Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and then Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 11:30. As you guys know, the offices are still open, mainly by appointment only. There's been major changes throughout the city. We definitely do appreciate you accommodating and the public accommodating us on this. We're trying to do our part to keep people safe, to keep our employees safe. We're trying to do our part to keep our citizens safe as well. A lot of these decisions have been hard. We're trying to be progressive in what we're doing, but we're taking these things day by day. The directors and myself meet 3 times a week and discuss topics about COVID-19. We've hired an excellent fire chief that's always keeping us up to date on the cases and everything like that. So we have a lot of good resources here at the city. So definitely just want to thank you for allowing us to make these different accommodations to the employees and to the staff and to the citizens. Also wanted to talk about, there's been a need for a food drive, and for the police and fire departments will be drop-off locations for that. And they're going to be able to suit up and go take that food to the proper location so they can continue to be donated. So that anybody's welcome to donate food to the police and fire departments. They'll have boxes outside. Also, the police and fire department has been as allowed that if somebody wants to call in for a birthday or a special event, they'll be doing drive-bys for their houses. It's been hard on kids, I know, not having their birthdays and things like that. So we've been trying to do our part as well. So, so thank you for the police and fire departments for doing that. Today, I've been involved in a meeting with the I-15 project. They're extending the lanes up here, as you guys know. Tonight, they'll be starting some demolition up there at that bridge on 5600 South. So there'll be additional noise and construction up there. Just wanted to let you know that project, they're doing everything they can to keep it on schedule. And so I think they're doing their part to, I think it's been good to not have the traffic up there, and it's allowing them to keep on schedule. I've had a couple of comments with public surplus. Just wanted to let everybody know, as it's state statute, that anytime we get rid of anything over $100, we have to put it up for public auction. As you guys know, that we had the public surplus items put up for a council today. Those items, we typically use a publicsurplus.com website that anywhere around the nation can go and bid. That includes residents, non-residents, and whoever. And so the reason why we do that is because we're looking for as much money as we can, and we found that that's the most successful avenue to do so. Every once in a while, when we'll have a nicer truck or something, we put it more on KSL and that type of public surplus website, auction website, because public surplus does charge the buyer a small fee of 10%. So, but we do get the best yield out of that. Also wanted to report about a month and a half ago, I know this is a little late, but myself and a couple of council members went to DC, and I wanted to report a little bit on what we've gained from that. The main point of going to Washington, DC is it's the National Leagues of Cities, that is what it's the conference that is back there. And the main point of the conference this year was infrastructure. Cities around the nation hurt by infrastructure. We alone have over $80 million of water lines and sewer lines beneath us. And at some point in time, they're all going to be due for repairs and replacement. And so they go back east, we go back east and advocate for infrastructure. One of the purposes of us going back there this year was actually to talk about the 5600 corridor. That's obviously a topic of continuous conversation. We did talk to, I've been having ongoing conversations actually with Bishop's office, and we seem to get their ear a little bit. It was just even yesterday, emailing back and forth with their office, talking about the stacking issues and things with Hill Air Force Base and the traffic congestion that's caused. So we're trying to tap into some of those potentially federal dollars as well. I know the mayor and council has been advocating heavily to get 5600 pushed up on that list of with the environmental impact study. After that, it'd be pushing us up on the list to actually get constructed. So also, not only do you meet with some of our delegates back there, or some of our representatives back there, but there's also the opportunity to go to different classes on different topics. We hear from quite a few people like Mayor Bloomberg, Paul Ryan. Some of the topics that they talked about is just when we were back there with the health crisis with COVID-19. This was in the primary stages when people were really just trying to figure it out. A big push back there was coming together. And that goes along with my favorite quote from back there. It says, "Come together, work together, play together." And I believe that was from the mayor of Washington, DC. Is that at these times of needs, that not only from a national base, but also here in the city, to come together, work together, and play together. This is all something that we have common goals, and that we all should strive to work together to accomplish those common goals. Affordable housing was a big topic. Infrastructure, obviously, was the main topic, homelessness. But also we got the opportunity to talk to different vendors with insurances, with online applications, with GeoGizmo. So I've had conversations with a couple of those. Some of the things that come out of the conference has been a little hiccuped because of the COVID-19 though. So But anyway, if there's other council members, that's all I have for the manager's minutes. If there's anything else anybody would like to add, feel free. But that's all I had.
Unmute yourself, Brian.
I should be on mute.
You are.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. A couple of things really quick. Work has started on Municipal Park. I'm excited about that. And I think the hope is to have it all complete before the new school year begins, is what I understood. But anyway, also I'm working with a couple of Roy businesses and trying to figure out a way to get them through this COVID before they close their doors. And I think I'm going to be back before you guys in one of the next upcoming meetings regarding these businesses requesting some dollars from our small loan fund. So, and that comes out of the RDA. Regarding the park, it was budgeted last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember.
The park is actually in the capital projects fund, and so it rolls over year to year.
Oh,
Just needs to be
okay.
rebudgeted, yes.
So that's where it came from, though. And then outside of that, if you guys are going to go into your work session and talk about that great, three letters that comes up every time, then I think I'm out of here. I've got a conflict of interest, cannot vote, cannot hear the language on it, but I appreciate everybody just the same. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else have a comment?
I do, Mayor. Very quickly, I want to do a shout out to our staff. It seems like when questions have been asked, they've been miles ahead of where we have been as far as being responsive to it, to being already ahead of what's been happening. Our facilities, our public works, our parks, our administrative staff, our public safety, they're all been very, very responsive to our employees' families, and our citizens as far as keeping them safe and healthy. I had a request from one of our citizens to say, do we have anywhere on our website what is open and how they can support Roy businesses? And is that a possibility? So those were the two comments I had this evening.
We started working toward putting something out there on Facebook for the different businesses. I think it would be a good time to start looking at that again. There was our newsletter that was doing the same thing. And so when we started going at that, we were running into some of that same behavior going on, and they were already doing it a week before us. But I think that'd be a good conversation. We can put it on the website. We were thinking about spotlighting different businesses and
even
stuff
if it could be linked to,
yeah,
if
that
they
might
can
be a great idea.
themselves something, just so
Yeah.
we know where to shop and how to shop in their,
Mhm.
in their facilities to keep our Roy businesses full of hope.
Mhm. I agree. Yeah, we'll look into that.
Thank you. Thanks to our staff especially, and tonight especially thanks to whoever made this possible. Morgan, I think you've been sweating bullets through this meeting. Thank you.
My camera's not on.
Okay, great comments. Okay, anybody else have comments? Okay, let me just share a couple. I think they're relevant and hopefully we can kind of get a solution. Matt, we're going to need some guidance. Other cities right now are considering and planning to not hold big events, parades, fireworks. In essence, we got a big one coming at us. Roy Days has been an institution in Roy for probably more years than I can count. And yet we're finding many of the other cities around us, and we're watching to see what the county does. They may very well, cancel. The biggest concern right now that the mayors have is that if one city or two cities cancels their big events and the rest of the cities don't, then they're going to take some whiplash, okay, from that. So they're looking for some unity in terms of how we as a broader community are going to address these big celebrations. So we're going to need some planning. We need to know what your drop dead date is. And at some point in time, we need a decision. Some of that will be based on what the health department provides, but I need a kind of a go, no-go decision date from you that says if we don't basically have a decision where we can start the planning, because you're going to spend an awful lot of money in the planning phase, then the city council is going to have to make a decision of whether or not we proceed with Roy Days or not. I'm just going to tell you up front, my biggest concern with that is not only that big event, but also we also encompass that Miss Roy Day. Miss Roy Day is not just a Roy issue. It is a state issue. It's a national issue. And so what I'd ask is if you can have Travis or Jody to kind of coordinate if in fact we still need to proceed with some type of Miss Roy activity or Miss Roy pageant, maybe we can't have the entire numbers of people we traditionally have at that big event, but we may still have to have something to be able to forward then our best candidates in that category forwarded to the state level and often to hopefully to the national level. So please give us some idea, Matt, as how we proceed and give us a drop dead date when you have to have a decision in the council. Hopefully we'll have enough information from the public health of whether we can proceed with that. Matt, real quick.
I had a comment on that. I often look at Bountiful City as our sister city, and I looked and they just canceled their Pioneer Days on the 24th. Our Roy Days are less than a week after that. I'm not advocating that we do cancel, but I found that pretty significant that you're getting cities that are comparable to us canceling right now.
You're absolutely correct, Joe. And obviously they're concerned, and these public entities, if they go according to what the current plan is, we may not get to something normal in terms of that until September. That will be long after.
About a resurgence.
And that's the other drawback if we're not careful with that. So I told them on the thing, it's all about what the public health people say and what they direct us, but we need to basically be ready, and we're gonna have to make a decision shortly, Matt, in terms of whether we got to go or no go decision.
Yeah, just to kind of speak of, yeah, go ahead, Jan.
If I could say my opinion on it, I would say that we make a quick decision on it and that we be very conservative in that, but that we let our public know that this is an extenuating circumstance, that we're not canceling it for the foreseeable 10 years, that we're canceling it until we have the safety of our citizens in mind for this year, not forever. But
absolutely correct, Jan, and that's actually critical. They need to understand that, and we need to share that with them. Good point.
This is obviously a discussion that we've had a lot of discussion about. To say that we're going to have 10,000 people in our Roy West Park is very hard to believe, especially right now. And so we've been working things in the budget. That's why we said we needed to become adaptive. Just so you know, just for instance, if we were wanting to do the salmon bake, we're getting that from Alaska. That was something that we would have ordered a month ago. To say the mass gathering permit takes 2 months to get. I highly doubt that Weber County is going to issue us a mass gathering permit if we were to issue that. The reason why we really haven't came out and just canceled it is we'd more like to say we would want to postpone it. Maybe the postponement be next year. Maybe it's a Winterfest. Maybe it's something else to accommodate it. We also have the trunk or treat. Maybe we could do something a little bit bigger there. We've been having a lot of conversations, but to say the traditional Roy Days that we love and know it's very highly unlikely. To say that we can have 10,000 people in a park is just highly unlikely when we can't even have 10 people together today.
Well, and I don't think we should give our citizens hope that the traditional Roy days could possibly come off. I think we should make a recommendation very quickly that we're not going to do our traditional, but that we will do it when we can with as much community pride as we can.
Mm-hmm. And we're already there to say that we can pull that off. We usually start planning months ago. And so that traditional Roy Days, I can't see it. So yes, we'll come up with a swift decision. We have the budget next council meeting. We'll be discussing some of those community events, especially because that's next budget year. And we have to come up with that in the budget in order to pay for it. So
Yeah, Matt, you're absolutely correct, and I think you're spot on. Then let's plan this, if you don't mind. Come in with the recommendation of the council by the 5th of May, and then give us your no-go decision and let the council go ahead and make that final decision. And then we'll get the word out. If we're going to cancel, we'll get the word out. Okay?
Okay.
Let's plan the 5th. A couple other things, Matt. It's not going to come as a big surprise, but you and I talked about the UDOT study. Do you want to talk to the council briefly about that?
Yeah, and I might have to apologize in advance. I don't know if it's really public, but they're going to be coming to our council chambers on the last meeting in May and to do some of that. I've been just having conversations with Lochner and Associates today. That's the engineer firm that is doing that study. But they're going to be doing a presentation in May, the last meeting. And so we will be meeting twice in May. We have the tentative budget, the first meeting, and then the 5600 environmental impact study, the last meeting. So.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. I think you need to be aware of that. That is a big issue. And we're going to get a peek under the tent of what they're proposing. And with that goes to the public. And so just be aware it's an important issue that has to be discussed and what UDOT's got planned for 56.
Mayor, I forgot to bring up one issue. Could I ask one other issue?
Please.
My neighborhood, and I'm sure your neighborhoods as well, have been very concerned about our senior graduates. Mm-hmm. And I've had specifically some people, and the mayor and I even spoke to this. What is the city doing to support our senior graduates? That's just something I hope we're thinking about. I don't have a solution for it, but certainly a question that we could all be thinking about.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. And
I have a senior graduate, and we've had some moments together. It's tough on them.
It is. So I think we can think about, as a city, how do we build that community pride in them and let them know that the city is certainly behind them.
I know that the administration is gonna place individual signs with their names on it in each of their yards.
Right.
Over 500 signs, but that obviously that's not city. I mean, they might need city people to help them find some of them kids' houses, but my heart breaks for them too.
There's a lot of options.
I think a banner across 1900 by the fire station right there, something, I think that would be fantastic to have something like that up.
Well, let's take that as an action. Jan, Ann, I think you're right at the head of this. How about doing us a favor? If you as council member have some ideas, please go ahead and forward those to Ann and Jan. And let's see if by next meeting, we can kind of come up with a plan of how we want to do it and how we can celebrate these seniors from the city perspective and move on that. So
thank you, Mayor, for supporting that.
I think that'd be perfect. Just a couple other things. Just to be aware, if you have not seen the Weber County data, it looks like Roy City has, between Roy City and Hooper, we got about 23 cases of the COVID-19. These are active cases in Roy. We're hoping they work through that. I will tell you, I got a letter here from YCC. YCC yearly comes in and asks us if we would help fund their programs through a donation. We've got to think about that, given the nature of our financial situation. So I'll be asking you to ponder that and giving you some information for our next meeting. Just the last couple of things. Joe Paul, you'll appreciate this one. Public Works, Matt, I, and Ross talked about the 5,700 speed humps. Ross is taking that personal. He's got a plan. We're going to take that one on first, that first black one, big tall one. And he's promised me that, and I hope Ross is still on, he's promised me that he'll call me when he basically starts doing something with those speed humps. Okay, just be
I've
aware of it.
relocated my
Hopefully
address. I no longer
this
live
week,
there.
Mayor.
Oh, baby, I love it. Ross, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna buy you and Brandon dinner. And,
Sounds good.
and
My
then just-
brother lives in that neighborhood and I went over that speed bump a couple of times last week. Man,
Oh.
you
Dude.
really need to slow down for that one.
Okay, well,
Please do not relocate.
No, it's working.
that to my
Yeah,
street,
it works.
Mayor.
We're putting one in Saxton's neighborhood next week.
No,
As soon as I replace his driveway.
okay. Anyway, and then last but not least, let me just make a comment. I'm not sure who's listening, but we have at least a number of people listening. There's still 20 of them on the line, and we're counting us. The city has, in reference to the assisted living, one of the last remaining components is that we wanted to check the noise on the emergency generator. The city has acquired that noise meter, but there's some issues they got to do in terms of setting up a time to be able to make that test. Following the outcome of that test to ensure that it meets the requirements and that we don't have a noise problem at that location, my plan is to send a letter to all of those residents, the 13 of them around that area, and indicate to them where we are, what we were able to do, and kind of summarize the city's involvement associated with the assisted living. Hopefully we'll have some of that thing cleaned out over the next few weeks. Okay, with that, any other comments, council?
Mayor, can I add something to the noise test? We did go by a machine that the decimal reader to see what the decimal is at the machine. To go down there, we've been down there a couple of times trying to test it out. One of the issues that we do have is that the traffic is over the decibel that is required by our ordinance. So it's very difficult to say that the generator is over when the traffic itself is over that decibel.
Yeah, good point. And I don't know exactly what the answer will be, whether you do it at 10 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning. It's just hard to know, but it's just one piece of this discussion that we still need to finish. And it's finding that right opportunity when you don't have the traffic noise in there, because it is a busy section. That intersection right there is always busy. And how we finish this, we just need to keep working at it and see what we can come up with. Okay. Before we get a motion to adjourn, Morgan, you need to make sure you remind us what's next.
So hopefully all of you have your invitation to the work session. I believe I had scheduled it to start at 6:30, so we're running a little late. But we shouldn't have any problems with that.
Just a
If
little.
you don't have your email, or if you can't find it, feel free to shoot me a text message. I can re-invite you and re-email it to you. But other than that, we'll just adjourn this meeting. If I can get a motion to adjourn, and then I'll close this meeting and we can all move over to the other one.
There you go. Do we have a motion then to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and get into the work session.